Sung Jinwoo was the weakest hunter alive, and he walked into a dungeon anyway, every single day. Not because he had power, not because the odds were in his favor, not because some hidden gift was waiting to be unlocked. He walked in because the alternative, staying outside, staying safe, staying small, was something he had already decided he could not live with. This is not a story about a man who got strong. This is a story about a man who chose pain so consistently, so quietly, so completely, that the universe eventually had no choice but to answer. There is a choice every person faces at some point in their life. Not dramatic, not cinematic, no music playing, just stay where it's warm or walk toward the cold. Most people choose warmth, not because they're weak, not because they don't have dreams, but because warmth is immediate, and the cold, the harder path, the longer road, the thing that costs something real, that cold reaches your bones before you've taken 3 steps down it. Sung Jinwoo chose the cold, before the system found him, before the Shadow Monarch, before the power that would eventually make him untouchable by anything in any world. He chose it when he was still the weakest hunter in existence, when every gate he walked into was a potential obituary, when the people around him looked at him with the specific pity reserved for someone they expected to die soon. He chose pain, not because he wanted it, but because standing still felt worse than dying moving. Think about that for a second, because I want you to ask yourself honestly, when was the last time you chose the cold? Let me tell you who Jinwoo was before everything changed. E rank. In a world where hunters are ranked from S to E, where S rank means you are practically a god, and E rank means you are practically a liability, Sung Jinwoo sat at the absolute bottom, not because he lacked courage, not because he lacked will. The world measured what he had and found it insufficient. Every gate he entered, he did so knowing the math was against him. Every raid he joined, the stronger hunters around him carried the weight while he survived on the edges, doing what little his body could manage, staying out of the way of people who were born with what he wasn't. He was 24 years old and already living like a man who had quietly accepted the ceiling. But here is what those early episodes show. If you are watching closely enough to see it, he never stopped showing up. Not once. When a smarter man would have quit, when a more comfortable man would have found a safer life, when every raid and every injury and every rank assessment was screaming at him that this was not his path, he showed up anyway. That is not plot armor. That is the most important thing about Sung Jinwoo. And it exists before the system, before the power, before any of it. And then, the double dungeon. The double dungeon should have been the end of Sung Jinwoo. By every calculation, every metric, every honest assessment of what he was capable of, he should have died there. He didn't have the strength to survive it. The statues, the commandments, the slaughter happening around him, every exit closing, every person he knew falling, and at the end of it, a choice, a blue screen, a system nobody had ever seen, a second chance offered by something he didn't understand and had no reason to trust. Most people talk about the system appearing, the quest prompt, the moment the story begins. But I want to talk about the moment before. Jinwoo, on the floor, bleeding, body at its absolute limit, and the decision he made, not to close his eyes, not to accept what was coming, but to look at a wall, at rules written by something unknown, and choose to obey them. Not because he trusted it, because it was the only door still open, and Sung Jinwoo would crawl toward an open door before he would lie down in a closed room. That moment, that bloody, half-conscious, desperate moment, is the most important in the entire series. Not because it unlocked the system, but because it proved who Jinwoo already was. The system didn't create his character, it found it. Now I need to tell you about his mother, because this is the part of the story that breaks everything open. She is sick. She has been sick. She needs money that hunters of his rank do not earn, and that a normal life would never provide. And there is a scene, quiet, almost easy to miss, where Jinwoo stands outside her hospital room. He looks at her through the glass. She doesn't know he's there. He watches her for a moment, just a moment, and then he turns around and walks back into a world that is actively trying to kill him. No speech, no dramatic music, no moment where he clenches his fist and makes a declaration. Just, he turns around and goes back. That single quiet turning is the entire thesis of Sung Jinwoo in one gesture. He is not doing this because he loves battle. He is not doing this because he craves power or recognition or a place in history. He is doing this because there is a woman in a hospital room who needs him to keep going. And that is enough. That has always been enough. The system gave Jinwoo something no other hunter in the world had: the ability to grow. In this world, hunters are born at their rank and die at their rank. S rank is not something you become. It is something assigned at awakening and carried to the grave. The hierarchy is fixed. The ceiling is permanent. The system broke that rule. But here is what I need you to understand, because this is the part almost everyone gets wrong. The system did not make Jinwoo strong. The system made Jinwoo's choices matter. There is a profound difference between those two things. Before the system, Jinwoo trained and fought and survived, and none of it accumulated into anything. The world didn't register his effort. The ranks didn't shift. The math stayed the same no matter how many times he showed up. The system simply made the invisible visible. It took everything Jinwoo was already choosing: the pain, the dissents, the refusal to stop, and gave it a number. And the number grew, because the person feeding it had been making those choices long before anyone was counting. Here's the question that should keep you up at night. How many people are out there right now doing the work, putting in the reps, making the hard choices, choosing the cold every morning, with no system counting it? How many Jinwoos are invisible right now? I want to talk about what the power cost, because everyone talks about what Jinwoo gained: the shadows, the army, the throne of the Shadow Monarch sitting on him like a crown built from everything he survived. Nobody talks about what he traded. Jinwoo spent the years most people use to build a life, to fall in love properly, to sleep soundly, to be present in a room without calculating the risk. Inside dungeons, alone. While his peers built careers and relationships and futures, Jinwoo descended, while the world above the gates continued its ordinary, beautiful, unremarkable life. Jinwoo went deeper into the dark, not because he was forced to, because he chose to. Every morning that could have been a rest day, every moment that could have been an ordinary moment, every version of a different life that was genuinely available to him, he traded it for the next level, for the next shadow, for an increment of power that nobody around him could see growing and that he could not yet use to protect the people he was building it for. That is not a power fantasy. That is a sacrifice so quiet and so consistent that it barely registers as sacrifice at all. That is just a man choosing the harder thing again and again and again. Here is the line from this story that I think matters most. Not a line of dialogue, not a scene from the show. Just the truth underneath all of it. Jinwoo never asked for this. He never asked to be chosen. Never asked to carry the legacy of the Shadow Monarch. Never asked for an army of the dead or a power that slowly, quietly separated him from every ordinary human thing he had ever known. He asked for one thing, to be strong enough to protect the people he loved. That was the entire request. Small, human, completely reasonable. And the universe, in the way that universes sometimes do, answered that small human request with something so much larger and so much lonelier than he ever bargained for. He got the power, he got the throne, he got the victory, and he carries all of it with the quiet, steady grief of a man who knows exactly what it cost and would make the same choice again tomorrow. Because the people he loves are still breathing. Sung Jinwoo didn't become the strongest because he was gifted. He became the strongest because he was willing to hurt, willing to descend, willing to trade comfort for capability every single morning with no guarantee it would ever be enough. In a world full of people who were born powerful, he became the most powerful thing in existence, not despite choosing pain, because of it. This is the story, Smith. We don't just watch anime, we feel it.